Inspector Zixtar of the Galactic Safety Commission stepped off the shuttle and immediately regretted every life choice that had led him to this moment. His 6 legs trembled as Earth's gravity pressed down on his chitinous frame like an invisible bully who had never learned the meaning of personal space. The atmospheric scanner on his wrist beeped frantically, flashing warnings in 3 different languages. Oxygen concentration, dangerously high. Atmospheric pressure, absurdly excessive. Gravity, frankly insulting. The device strongly suggested he leave immediately and file the report from a safe distance, preferably from another solar system. Inspector Zixtar, welcome to Earth. A human approached with an outstretched hand and a smile that showed far too many teeth for Zixtar's comfort. I'm Marcus Chen, your liaison officer. We're so excited to have you here for the safety inspection. Zixtar extended one trembling appendage for what humans called a handshake, a bizarre ritual that involved grabbing each other's limbs and shaking them around like malfunctioning machinery. Marcus's grip was firm. Too firm. Zixtar felt his exoskeleton creak ominously. Yes, well, shall we begin the inspection? Zixtar consulted his datapad with his free appendages, desperately trying to maintain professional composure. I must say, the preliminary readings are quite concerning. Your planet's environmental parameters are significantly outside standard habitable ranges. Marcus laughed, actually laughed, as though Zixtar had told a joke. Oh, those? Yeah, we get that a lot from off-world visitors. Don't worry about it. You'll acclimate in no time. Acclimate. To a planet that was actively trying to crush him. Wonderful. They walked toward the landing facility, and Zixtar noticed Marcus wasn't wearing any protective gear. No pressure suit, no oxygen regulator, no gravity compensation rig. Just some fabric coverings that the humans inexplicably called clothes, as if thin woven material could protect anyone from a hostile environment. Mr. Chen, are you not concerned about the oxygen toxicity levels? My scanner indicates that prolonged exposure could cause cellular damage to most known species. Marcus glanced at the scanner and shrugged, an odd human gesture that involved raising their shoulder joints. Huh. Never really thought about it. We just breathe it. Been doing it our whole lives, actually. You just breathe it, Zixtar repeated flatly. Yep. In and out, all day long. Pretty automatic, really. Zixtar made a note on his datapad. Humans possess either extraordinary adaptive biology or catastrophic lack of self-preservation instincts. Possibly both. The facility tour began innocently enough. Marcus showed him the landing pads, the administrative offices, and the cargo processing areas. Everything seemed reasonably civilized until they stepped outside onto what Marcus called the observation deck. The wind hit Zixtar like a physical slap. His antennae bent backward at alarming angles, and he had to dig his legs into the ground to avoid being blown over like tumbling vegetation. Bit breezy today, Marcus commented cheerfully, his own hair barely moving in what Zixtar could only describe as a Category 3 atmospheric disturbance. Perfect weather for the staff barbecue later. Perfect, Zixtar wheezed, clutching his datapad to his thorax. Mr. Chen, do humans not find this wind speed dangerous? This? Nah, this is like 15 miles per hour. Maybe 20. Now, if it gets up to 60 or 70, then you might want to tie down your lawn furniture. Zixtar's translator struggled with the concept of furniture that lived on lawns and required restraint during weather events, but he chose not to pursue that particular rabbit hole of human absurdity. So, I thought we'd start with something low-key, Marcus said, guiding Zixtar toward a building with floor-to-ceiling windows. Just a quick stop at the community fitness center. Give you a sense of how humans spend their leisure time. Leisure time. The phrase should have been Zixtar's first warning. The moment they entered, Zixtar's auditory sensors were assaulted by what he could only describe as rhythmic violence set to music. Metallic objects clanged against each other with percussive regularity. Humans grunted and exhaled in synchronized suffering. The air smelled of synthetic cleaning chemicals and something organic that his translator unhelpfully labeled as sweat. "Welcome to Iron Paradise Gym," Marcus announced proudly. "Opens at 5 in the morning. Always packed." 5 in the morning. Humans voluntarily woke before their sun fully rose to come to this place. Zixthar watched in mounting horror as a human female lifted a metal bar loaded with circular weights that had to mass at least twice her body weight. She lowered it to her chest, then pushed it upward while making sounds that suggested imminent biological failure. Then she did it again. And again. 12 times in total. "That's impressive form," Marcus noted. "Probably benching 160, 170. Is she being punished?" Zixthar asked weakly. "What?" "No, she's working out. You know, exercise. Staying healthy. That is health." "She appears to be in respiratory distress." Marcus laughed that infuriating human laugh again. "Oh man, wait until you see the CrossFit section." The CrossFit section, as it turned out, resembled a medieval torture chamber that had been given a fresh coat of paint and motivational posters. Humans threw heavy balls at walls. They flipped enormous tires that probably came from construction vehicles. They hung from bars and pulled their entire body weight upward repeatedly, something Marcus called pull-ups, as though the name made it less insane. One human male was doing what appeared to be a combination of a jump, a squat, and a floor collapse, over and over at speed that seemed medically inadvisable. "Burpees," Marcus explained. "Great full-body exercise. He is repeatedly throwing himself at the ground." "Well, yeah, but then he gets back up. That's the important part." A woman with remarkably defined musculature approached them, smiling despite the fact that she was covered in that sweat substance. "Marcus. Good to see you. Who's your friend?" "Keisha Williams, Meat Inspector Zixthar. He's doing a safety assessment of Earth." "Zixthar, Keisha's one of our top personal trainers." Keisha extended her hand, and Zixthar reluctantly accepted another bone-crushing handshake. "Personal trainer," he repeated. "You train persons." "That's right. I help people reach their fitness goals. Build strength, increase endurance, push past their limits. You help them suffer." "I mean, I wouldn't phrase it exactly like that, but there's definitely some discomfort involved in growth." She gestured toward the far wall where humans were running on machines that went nowhere. "We've got marathon training starting in 20 minutes if you want to observe." Marathon, Zixthar's translator provided, an Earth distance measurement of 26.2 miles, often traversed by humans on foot for recreational purposes. That could not possibly be correct. Zixthar made a note to have his translator serviced. "Actually, we should grab some post-workout nutrition," Marcus suggested, leading Zixthar toward a bar area where a human was operating a loud machine that pulverized organic matter into liquid form. The human poured a thick, beige substance into a container and handed it to Marcus, who took a long drink and sighed with satisfaction. "Nothing like a protein shake after a good workout. Want to try some?" Zixthar stared at the viscous liquid. "What is protein shake?" "It's got whey protein, banana, peanut butter, oats, and a little chocolate. Helps build muscle. You consume ground nuts and compressed grain. Voluntarily. Tastes great, actually." Keisha was making her own concoction, adding what appeared to be green plant matter to the mixture. "I throw in some spinach and kale. Extra vitamins." They were drinking liquefied leaves. Humans were drinking liquefied leaves and calling it wellness culture. Zixthar updated his notes. Humans engage in voluntary physical torture during leisure hours, then celebrate survival by consuming plant matter in liquid form. Recommend immediate psychological evaluation of entire species. The weekend arrived, and Marcus insisted that Zixthar needed to see how humans spent their days off. "You can't truly understand Earth without experiencing a Saturday at the park," he'd said, as though this was some profound cultural insight rather than a thinly veiled threat. Riverside Park was, according to Marcus, a popular spot for families and fitness enthusiasts. Zixtar's environmental scanner immediately registered the temperature at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which his translator helpfully noted was inadvisable for sustained physical activity in most carbon-based lifeforms. Naturally, the park was absolutely teeming with humans engaged in sustained physical activity. A group of them ran past, their skin glistening with moisture, their faces flushed red in what surely indicated the early stages of heat stroke. They were smiling. Some were even conversing with each other in complete sentences while simultaneously running, a feat that seemed to defy basic respiratory biology. Morning joggers, Marcus explained. Probably doing 5 or 6 miles. In this heat? Are they fleeing danger? Nope. Just getting their cardio in before it gets too hot. Too hot. This wasn't too hot yet. Zixtar contemplated requesting emergency extraction. His attention was drawn to a vertical rock wall where several humans were scaling the surface using only their appendages. They gripped tiny protrusions and pulled themselves upward, muscles straining, occasionally slipping and catching themselves at the last possible moment. "Oh, nice, the climbing wall is open," Marcus said. "That's Miguel up there. He's training for a competition." "There are competitions for this?" "Sure. Sport climbing, bouldering, speed climbing. It's actually in the Olympics now." Zixtar watched Miguel reach the top of the wall, which had to be at least 40 feet high, then simply let go and fall backward into space. Zixtar's mandibles clicked in alarm before he noticed the rope system that arrested Miguel's descent. "At least he has safety equipment," Zixtar muttered. "Oh, some people free solo. You know, climb without ropes." "Without ropes?" "Yeah, it's like a purity thing. Just you and the rock. It is a death thing. It is called a death thing everywhere else in the galaxy." Marcus shrugged, and Zixtar was beginning to truly hate that gesture. Movement in his peripheral sensors caught his attention. A young human launched himself at a waist-high wall, planted his hands on top, and vaulted over it in a fluid motion. He then ran at a railing, jumped onto it, balanced for a moment, and leaped to grab a tree branch, swinging himself up onto it. "Parkour," Marcus said before Zixtar could ask. "Urban acrobatics. It's all about efficient movement through your environment." Efficient movement would be walking around the wall. Where's the fun in that? Fun. There was that word again. Humans had a deeply disturbing definition of fun. The parkour practitioner was joined by 2 others, and they began using the playground equipment in ways that definitely violated the manufacturer's intended use guidelines. They flipped off swings, scaled structures from the outside, and launched themselves between platforms with casual disregard for the concept of falling damage. A teenager executed a backflip off a horizontal ladder, landed perfectly, then immediately did it again. "Should we not stop them?" Zixtar asked. "They are clearly too old for juvenile play structures." As long as they're not bothering the little kids, it's fine." "Hey, check it out, Devon's here." A human male approached on a wheeled board, propelling himself forward by pushing one foot against the ground. This seemed relatively sane until Devon reached a set of concrete stairs, positioned his board at the edge, and proceeded to ride it down all 15 steps with a grinding, clattering noise that surely indicated structural failure of either the board or Devon's skeletal system. Devon landed at the bottom, stumbled slightly, then pumped his fist in the air. "Yes. Finally landed it clean." "Devon Rodriguez," Marcus called out. "How's the ankle?" "Still a little swollen from last week, but it's good enough." "Want to see me hit the rail?" "We're actually just observing today. Inspector Zixtar here is from the Galactic Safety Commission." Devon grinned, revealing that he was missing part of one front tooth. "Safety inspection? Bro, you picked the wrong species. We don't really do safe." "I am beginning to understand this," Zixtar said faintly. Devon proceeded to demonstrate by skating toward a metal handrail, jumping onto it with his board, and grinding along its length before launching off the end. He fell upon landing, rolled across the pavement, and popped back up laughing. "Your ankle," Zixtar protested weakly. "You said it was injured." "Yeah, but not broken or anything. Just sprained. And you are continuing to impact it repeatedly." "I mean, yeah. How else am I gonna get better?" Zixtar turned to Marcus, his antennae quivering with distress. "Mr. Chen, I must ask. Do humans possess pain receptors? Are you capable of feeling damage to your physical forms?" "Oh, we feel it," Marcus assured him. "That's kind of the point for some people. Adrenaline junkies, we call them. They seek out dangerous activities because it gives them a rush. Makes them feel alive. Feeling alive should not require risking death. You'd think so, wouldn't you?" Marcus watched Devon attempt the rail again. But here we are. Zixtar's mental state, already fragile, began developing hairline fractures. These humans were deliberately, enthusiastically, repeatedly injuring themselves during their leisure time. And they called it recreation. The word came from recreate. To create again. Were they recreating their injuries? Their trauma? Their medical bills? He needed to lie down. Preferably on a planet with reasonable gravity and atmospheric pressure. Marcus decided that Zixtar needed to see Earth's seasonal diversity, which was how the inspector found himself at a Colorado mountain resort, staring up at a slope that seemed to violate several laws of physics and possibly a few interstellar treaties on acceptable incline angles. "Isn't it beautiful?" Marcus breathed, gesturing at the snow-covered mountain. "Perfect powder day." Zixtar watched a human strap two elongated boards to their feet, point themselves directly down the mountain, and simply fall forward. They accelerated to speeds that would require emergency braking on most civilized planets, carved sharp turns that generated forces sufficient to tear lesser species apart, and appeared to be enjoying every moment of it. "They are falling," Zixtar observed. "With style, perhaps, but fundamentally they are controlled falling." "That's skiing." "Well, that guy over there is snowboarding, which is controlled falling on one board instead of two. This distinction does not make it less insane." A snowboarder launched off a jump, rotated completely upside down in midair, then somehow landed still attached to his board and continued down the slope. Several humans watching from the lift above cheered and hooped. "That was a sick backflip," Marcus said admiringly. "Clean landing too." Zixtar's translator offered 17 different definitions of sick, none of which seemed appropriate to describe intentional aerial rotation while falling down a mountain. Their attention was drawn to a vertical ice wall where a human was ascending using only small handheld picks and spiked foot attachments. Each movement involved stabbing sharp objects into frozen water and trusting those objects to support full body weight. "Ice climbing," Marcus explained unnecessarily, "really builds upper body strength. So does not climbing ice." "Yeah, but where's the challenge in that?" A cheerful voice called out from behind them. "Marcus Chen, is that you? Haven't seen you since the summer trail runs." An elderly couple approached, both wearing heavy boots, carrying large packs, and using walking sticks. The woman had silver hair pulled back in a practical braid. The man sported a white beard that would have seemed grandfatherly if not for the crampon spikes attached to his boots. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. How have you been?" "Wonderful. Just got back from hiking Mount Elbert last week. 14,440 feet. Took us 2 days, but we made it to the summit." The woman, Mrs. Johnson, spoke with the casual pride of someone discussing a pleasant afternoon stroll. Zixtar consulted his scanner. 14,000 feet meant significantly reduced oxygen levels. "Pardon me, but what is your age in Earth years?" "I'm 73, Mr. Johnson said. "Betty here just turned 71. "And you climbed a mountain taller than most species' communication towers." "Well, we work up to it," Mrs. Johnson said modestly. Started with the easier 14ers when we retired. It's wonderful exercise, and the views are just spectacular. When you retired, Zixthar repeated. The period of life when most species reduce physical activity to preserve remaining function. Oh, that's when we finally had time to really get into hiking, Mr. Johnson said. Before retirement, we could only do weekends. Now we can spend whole weeks on the trail. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. My parents are the same way. Bought a camper van and now they rock climb all over the country. They're in their 60s. A commotion near the frozen lake drew their attention. A group of humans in minimal clothing were gathered at the water's edge, where a hole had been cut through the ice. Oh, excellent, the Polar Bear Club is meeting, Marcus said. Zixthar watched in abject horror as humans, one by one, jumped into water that his scanner confirmed was barely above freezing. They emerged seconds later, screaming and laughing, their skin turning alarming shades of red and blue. Why, Zixthar whispered. Why would they do this? Cold water immersion therapy, Mrs. Johnson explained. Supposed to boost circulation, reduce inflammation, strengthen the immune system. We do it every Sunday morning. You do this weekly. Voluntarily. It's invigorating. You should try it. I should not. I should very much not. Zixthar's legs were trembling again, and this time it wasn't from the gravity. Mr. Chen, I must ask you a serious question. Do humans have a death wish? Is your species engaged in some form of collective self-termination ritual? What? No, we're just having fun and staying active. This is active. This is extremely active. This is actively insane. Marcus laughed and clapped him on what would have been a shoulder if Zixthar had shoulders. Oh buddy, this is just the beginner stuff. The really extreme sports happen in the summer. Base jumping, big wave surfing, cave diving, bull riding. You haven't seen anything yet. Zixthar made a small whimpering sound that his species typically reserved for approaching predators or catastrophic hull breaches. There was worse than this. Humans had activities that made jumping into frozen lake seem like the beginner level. He was going to need so much therapy when he got home. The navigation error was entirely Marcus's fault, though he seemed remarkably unconcerned about accidentally driving onto a restricted military installation. What concerned Zixthar considerably more was what he was witnessing through the vehicle window. Rows of humans in identical clothing were running in formation while carrying heavy packs. Others crawled through mud beneath nets of barbed wire. A group was crossing a series of suspended obstacles while a human in a distinctive hat yelled at them with impressive volume and creativity. Mr. Chen, Zixthar said slowly, I believe we have stumbled upon a labor camp. We should contact the authorities immediately. This appears to be a severe violation of sentient rights. Marcus glanced out the window and laughed. What? No, this is Fort Carson. Military base. That's basic training. Training for what? Surviving apocalyptic scenarios? Nah, just regular army stuff. Building discipline, physical fitness, combat readiness. Standard military training. A human ran past their vehicle, carrying another human in a fireman's carry, both of them covered head to toe in mud that squelched with each footfall. The carrier was breathing hard but hadn't slowed down. They appear to be in distress, Zixthar observed. They're doing buddy carries. It's an exercise. Builds teamwork and strength. Before Zixthar could respond, a human in an immaculate uniform with a hat that seemed designed to add unnecessary height approached their vehicle. Marcus rolled down the window. Sir, this is a restricted area, the human said crisply. Sorry about that, Sergeant. Wrong turn. Inspector Zixthar here is doing a planetary safety assessment. We'll head out, but is it okay if we watch for just a minute? I think he'd find it educational. The sergeant, whose name tag read Lopez, glanced at Zixthar with an expression that suggested she had seen many strange things in her career, but an anxious insectoid alien was a new addition to the list. Educational. Sure. You picked obstacle course day. She gestured toward a brutal-looking series of walls, ropes, and climbing structures. Watch and learn, Inspector. Sergeant Lopez strode toward the obstacle course where a group of young humans waited, looking nervously excited. Listen up, recruits. This course separates the motivated from the merely present. I want to see maximum effort, maximum intensity, and minimal whining. Do you understand me? Yes, Sergeant, they shouted in unison. I can't hear you. Yes, Sergeant. Then move, move, move. The recruits attacked the course with startling enthusiasm. They scaled walls, swung across gaps, hauled themselves over barriers, and crawled through trenches filled with what appeared to be deliberately placed mud and possibly some regret. One recruit slipped off a rope obstacle and fell into a mud pit. Zixthar tensed, expecting medical personnel to rush forward, but the recruit simply stood up, climbed back onto the obstacle, and continued. He fell, Zixthar said. Yep, Marcus agreed. And he is continuing. That's kind of the point. You fail, you get back up, you try again. Sergeant Lopez was now beside a recruit doing push-ups in the mud, her voice carrying across the training field. Is that the best you've got, Private? My grandmother does better push-ups than that, and she's been dead for 3 years. Give me 20 more. The private, rather than protesting this clear psychological abuse, shouted, Yes, Sergeant, and continued doing push-ups with renewed vigor. Mr. Chen, Zixthar said carefully, these humans are being punished, yes? They committed crimes and this is their sentence? What? No, they volunteered. They signed up for military service. They volunteered for the screaming and the mud and the physical torture. It's not torture, it's training. Builds character, mental toughness, physical capability. Most of these kids are 18, 19 years old. They wanted to serve their country. They wanted this. Sure did. Competitive process too. Not everyone who applies gets accepted. Zixthar watched another group doing an exercise Sergeant Lopez called burpees, which appeared to be the same self-assault maneuver he'd seen at the gym, except now performed while wearing boots and carrying equipment. Actually, Marcus continued, civilians pay money to do similar stuff. Ever heard of Tough Mudder? It's like a 10 to 12 mile obstacle course. People sign up, pay an entry fee, and voluntarily run through mud, ice water, electrical wires, and all sorts of challenges. Electrical wires. Yeah, they shock you. Not enough to cause real damage, just enough to hurt and make you question your life choices. It's great team building. Humans pay money to be shocked. And to run through fire. There's usually a fire obstacle too. Zixthar's worldview, already cracked and compromised, began to crumble entirely. The humans weren't being forced to do these things. They weren't prisoners or punishment cases. They were volunteers. Enthusiastic volunteers. Some of them were even paying for the privilege. There's a saying, Marcus said. No pain, no gain. You don't grow stronger by staying comfortable. You have to push past your limits. Your limits exist for reasons. They are biological safety mechanisms designed to prevent catastrophic damage. Sure, but if you never test them, you never know what you're truly capable of. A recruit successfully completed the obstacle course and Sergeant Lopez actually smiled, a terrifying expression that somehow conveyed both pride and the promise of harder challenges to come. Outstanding, Private. That's what I like to see. Now go help your battle buddies finish. The successful recruit immediately ran back onto the course to encourage and assist the others still struggling through it. They helped each other. They volunteered for suffering, then helped others volunteer for suffering. It was a self-perpetuating cycle of voluntary adversity. Zixtar's antennae drooped. I need to file an amended report. Oh yeah? What are you going to say? I do not know yet. My previous categories for classification do not adequately capture what I am observing. I may need to create entirely new categories. Possibly new words. Marcus grinned. Welcome to Earth, Inspector. Marcus thought it would be enlightening for Zixtar to observe human development at its earliest stages. This was how the inspector found himself standing behind a chain-link fence, watching what could only be described as organized chaos masquerading as education. The playground at Riverside Elementary School was filled with small humans engaged in activities that would result in immediate intervention on any civilized world. They ran at speeds that seemed inadvisable for beings with still developing motor control. They climbed structures that reached heights of 15 feet or more. They hung from bars by only their hands, swinging themselves from one to the next with casual disregard for gravity's existence. Recess, Marcus explained. 30 minutes of unstructured play. Helps them socialize and burn off excess energy. Excess energy, Zixtar repeated. The children have too much energy. Yeah, if they don't get it out, they can't focus in class. Kids need to move. Zixtar watched a small human, perhaps 7 years old, climb to the top of a slide that had to be 12 feet tall, then throw herself down it head first on her stomach, shrieking with what he desperately hoped was joy and not terror. On the adjacent field, a teacher was organizing some sort of group activity. She handed out red rubber balls to half the children, then blew a whistle. The children with balls immediately began throwing them at the children without balls, who ran and dodged and occasionally got hit with enough force to stagger backward. What is happening there? Zixtar demanded. Dodgeball. Classic playground game. You try to hit the other team with the ball, they try not to get hit. They are throwing projectiles at each other. Soft projectiles. It's fun. A small boy caught a ball directly to the face, stumbled, then laughed and ran to the sideline. Fun. The child had been struck in the head and considered it fun. Another group was playing something called tag, which involved one child chasing the others with the apparent goal of physical contact, at which point the contacted child became the chaser. It was like a contagion scenario, except voluntary and recreational. A teacher approached the fence, smiling warmly. You must be the inspector Marcus mentioned. I'm Jennifer Hartwell, 4th grade. Your students are very active, Zixtar managed. Oh yes, this age group especially. They've got so much energy. If we didn't give them recess, we'd never get through a math lesson. They need to run, jump, play. It's developmentally important. On my world, children this age are kept in low-impact environments to prevent injury during crucial growth periods. We tried that approach back in the early 2000s, Ms. Hartwell said. Removed playground equipment that seemed too dangerous, limited physical play. Know what happened? Injury rates went up. Turns out kids need to learn risk assessment, spatial awareness, how to fall safely. You can't learn that sitting still. A group of children on the monkey bars had invented a game that involved hanging upside down by their knees. Upside down. Voluntary inversion while suspended above hard ground. Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it and grinned. Oh, perfect timing. My nephew has a youth hockey game this afternoon. Want to see organized sports? Zixtar did not want to see organized sports. He very much did not want to see organized sports. 2 hours later, he was watching 10-year-old humans on ice skates crashing into each other with a level of violence that seemed excessive for recreational activity. They fought over a small rubber disc using long sticks, body-checking each other into walls while parents cheered from the stands. That's Tommy, my nephew, Marcus said, pointing to a small human who had just been knocked flat but was already getting back up. He plays defense. Tough kid. In the adjacent rink, even smaller humans were engaged in something called tackle football. They wore protective padding that clearly wasn't sufficient given the impacts Zixthar was witnessing, and they threw themselves at each other with the single-minded determination of tiny, athletic missiles. A parent next to them shouted, "Good hit, Brady. Way to wrap up. Good hit." Enthusiastic praise for successful collision. On the mat beyond the ice rinks, young humans in matching uniforms were grappling with each other, trying to pin each other to the ground. Wrestling, Marcus called it. Sport grappling. Competitive hugging with aggressive intent. You train your children for combat, Zixthar said weakly. We train them for sports. Competition. Teamwork. Physical literacy. They collide. Repeatedly. Their parents celebrate these collisions. Builds toughness. My nephew took a puck to the face last season, lost a tooth. He was back on the ice the next game. Lost a tooth. Returned to the activity that removed the tooth. These weren't children, they were tiny, indestructible chaos agents. Zixthar updated his notes with shaking appendages. Human offspring demonstrate Deathworld adaptations from earliest developmental stages. Parental units encourage risk-taking behavior. Child-rearing practices appear designed to produce next generation of willing danger seekers. Species-wide madness confirmed. Zixthar sat in his temporary quarters, staring at the safety assessment form on his datapad. Every category glared back at him in accusatory red: environmental hazards, extreme atmospheric conditions, extreme gravity rating, extreme indigenous population risk assessment, beyond CATGORIZATON. He had been sitting here for 3 hours, trying to find words that adequately captured what he had witnessed without sounding completely unhinged. The Galactic Safety Commission valued objective, measured reporting. How did one objectively describe a species that threw itself off mountains for entertainment? A knock at the door interrupted his crisis. Marcus entered with 2 cups of something steaming. "Brought you coffee," he said cheerfully. "Figured you could use it. How's the report coming?" "It is not coming. It is sitting. Stagnant. Like my faith in intelligent life." Zixthar took the coffee cautiously. The liquid was dark, bitter, and contained enough stimulants to be classified as a controlled substance on 60% of civilized worlds. Marcus settled into a chair, which creaked alarmingly under standard Earth gravity. "Look, I know we probably seem a little intense to off-worlders, but we're really not that bad once you get to know us." "Not that bad," Zixthar repeated hullily. "Mr. Chen, I have watched your species engage in activities that would be considered suicide attempts on any other world. And these were the recreational activities. Oh, we didn't even get to the really good stuff. Did I mention ultramarathons? People run 100 miles through deserts and mountains. Some races go for 24 hours straight." Zixthar's antennae twitched. "Why? Personal challenge, I guess. Then there's Ironman competitions. 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, full marathon run. All in one day. People train for years to do it. That is not training. That is preparation for species extinction. Oh, and free solo climbing. That's when people climb mountains like El Capitan without any ropes or safety equipment. Just them and the rock face. 3,000 feet straight up." The coffee cup trembled in Zixthar's appendages. "Please stop talking. Then there's boxing. 2 people get in a ring and punch each other repeatedly in the face until someone either gets knocked unconscious or the time runs out. We sell tickets to watch it. You monetize assault. Combat sports are huge. Boxing, mixed martial arts, wrestling. People love it." Marcus took a sip of his coffee. "Base jumping is pretty wild too. Jump off buildings or cliffs with a parachute. Sometimes the parachute doesn't open and, well, that's a bad day. And people do this knowing the parachute might fail? The risk is part of the appeal. Same with cave diving. Swimming through underwater caves with limited air supply, tight spaces, zero visibility sometimes. Or big wave surfing, riding waves that are like 60, 70 feet tall. Could easily drown or get smashed into rocks. Zixthar set down his coffee before he dropped it. Mr. Chen. Marcus. Please. I must know. What is wrong with your species? Is there a genetic defect? A cultural trauma? A planetary condition that affects cognitive function? Marcus considered this for a long moment. Honestly? I think we just get bored easily. Earth isn't that dangerous to us anymore. We conquered most of the predators, built shelters against the weather, developed medicine. So we invented new challenges. We need to test ourselves, push boundaries, feel alive. You feel alive by nearly dying. Sometimes, yeah. Zixthar looked at his report, then back at Marcus. I am going to need a new classification system.